Welcome to the SkySlope Preview. In this preview, we're going to take a look at some SkySlope features, take a tour of SkySlope, see how to process a transaction, and find out additional learning opportunities. The main SkySlope functions are forms, using a digital signature. It is your transaction management system, as well as processing all documents to the transaction processors. Some of the main features that you'll see within SkySlope, there is a forms library that you will set up when you first log in. This includes your state forms as well as your Allen Tate forms. We have created form templates for you, so depending on the type of transaction, we've gathered the documents that you will need for that particular transaction. You can create personal forms templates if you want to. You can also create personal task templates. There's an integrated digital signature platform that's called DigiSign. You're able to email documents into the transaction with a specific transaction email that's different for each transaction. You can keep an easy log of all communications, whether it's email communications, add notes, or send documents into the transaction. From the transaction, you can also email and share documents. This could be to your client, or it could be the agent on the other side. To give you a quick tour of the SkySlope Dashboard, along the top navigation bar, one of the first things that you'll do is you'll go in and you're going to set up your agent profile within your SkySlope account. This is really just updating some of your main contact, some of your personal information. You can also add an alternate email ID if you have someone else that you want to receive notifications from SkySlope. Within the notification section, you'll be able to set up your listings, your transaction notifications, as well as task email notifications. When you're setting up your profile, you can also add a signature for email. You could simply copy your email signature from your Gmail account, from your Allen Tate account, or you can create a new signature. Moving along the top navigation bar, we also want to point out that there we have 24/7 SkySlope support. You're able to go to their support page and look for quick references. You can also chat with them for a very quick response. Moving along in the navigation bar is a quick search. At any time, you can click on the quick search and search for an existing transaction. There's three main workspace views within SkySlope. What you see when you first log in is the main SkySlope dashboard. This is where you're going to do most of your day-to-day work. There's also a forms page. This is where you're going to fill out any of your forms. So you'll create a file from here, and from your file, you'll be able to add additional forms. You will also have another view, which is the DigiSign page. And in DigiSign, you're going to be able to see any of the digital signature envelopes that have been sent out for signature. You'll be able to see any that are completed, ones that are sent that haven't yet been completed, and those that are in draft. Coming back to the main SkySlope dashboard, when you are looking along the top area of the dashboard, you're able to get a quick view of any of your current activity that is happening for your transactions, starting with any closings that you have scheduled for the month, listings that are currently active, listings or buyers that are pending, any properties that you have closed already this month, anything that you have under contract that has passed the closing date that you put in the SkySlope transaction. That's what expired escrows this month is for. And then also expired listings. So listings that have gone past the expiration date that you entered into SkySlope. As you move along on the dashboard, you have some quick buttons where you can click to manage any of your existing transactions. These are going to be listings and buyers that are under contract. You create a transaction from here. So once you have a buyer under contract, you would create a transaction. Manage existing listings, create a new listing. At any time, you could click this button here to go look at any incomplete checklists. View canceled contract transactions. Anything that is closed will stay in the Access Archives button. Tasks and reminders is the easy way for you to access if you're using the task section of any of your transactions. And then lastly, you do have a file called Working Documents. We think of it that you have a way of adding any documents that you might want to reference quickly. This is not a document that is transaction specific. You might think of it similar to like a Dropbox where you have some documents that are stored here. They could be utility sheets that you might send to clients and so forth. Let's look at a quick preview on how to process a transaction. For a listing transaction, you're going to create any of your forms. You're going to fill out your forms in the form section. So you'll create the file with your forms, send those off for digital signature. Step 2, you're going to create the listing in SkySlope. Once you have an accepted contract, you will transition that listing over to transactions as an under contract transaction. You'll process the documents that you have for going under contract. And then once you have a closing, step 4, you're going to add your closing documents, submit your commission check, and you will get paid. With a buyer transaction, it's similar, but it's going to start with going under contract. So you would create your file with forms for buyer agency, as well as when you're ready to make an offer. Once you have a property under contract with a buyer, then you would create the transaction in SkySlope, go through that process for any documents that you need to submit, and then you would add any closing documents, submit your commission check, and get paid. Let's take a deeper look. The first thing that you'll always start with is creating a file where you will add forms. You'll complete any of the information about the client, the property, if you have it, and you will apply a template. Remember, these templates are going to have the forms that you need to get started. You'll be able to select any of the forms that you need for that particular digital signature or forms that you want to fill out at that time. You'll select the forms that you want. You can also add additional forms, upload outside documents, and apply additional templates. When you're ready, you can then click Fill and Send. And from here, you're going to fill out any of the forms. You're also able to reorder the forms from this section. When you have completed all of the forms that you need to, you can go from there and you can either download them or you can prepare them for signature. When you're ready to prepare them for signature, you're going to go through each document and confirm all of the signatures, initials, and dates. You can also add initials and signatures and dates. In addition, you can make changes to the signing order. You can add text fields and additional edits with the signatures. When you've completed and confirmed that everything is ready to be sent, then you will click on Send. And when you're ready to send, once you click on Send, you'll be able to fill out email information. You'll be able to create a subject line as well as a body of the email to go to your clients. When you've completed any forms that are ready to be turned into the transaction processor, you'll go in and on the SkySlope Dashboard, you're either going to create the listing if it's a new listing, or you will create a transaction if it's a buyer that's gone under contract. In this example, I'm using Create Listing. It's going to do a walkthrough setup and ask questions along the way that are going to be important to the transaction, as well as for the transaction processor to process your transaction. You'll be able to attach the forms that have been completed in the form section. You'll attach those to your listing transaction. From here, you will also, as you're setting up your listing transaction, you're going to select a checklist that is appropriate for the type of listing that you have and for the state that you're in. It's going to create the listing transaction for you. Along the top here, you can see that we have a listing detail. If you click on this, you're going to see all of the property and listing detail. There's a section for contacts that you'll fill in. And your main working area is going to be the checklist. And the checklist that's listed below, this is going to be the checklist that you are using to put the documents that are completed that you want to submit to the transaction processor. From there, the transaction processor is going to be able to see the documents that you've submitted, and they're going to be able to review them. Going along the top here, you also have the ability to look at any documents in the transaction, the log of any communications that have happened and logged within the transaction, as well as any tasks that you might be using for the transaction. You have several ways that you can add documents. The checklist that we have here are going to be very specific to the type of transaction, the state, and even the region that you are doing business in. You have the ability to come over here and click attach. It's going to look in the document section for a document to fill in. You're also able to upload documents that might be on your computer. You can drag and drop documents into this section to attach any documents here. There's a few different status types that you might see. When you're initially looking at a checklist or as you're getting started, you might see the light blue, which is if applicable. This means that it may not be a document that is required for your region for the type of transaction, but it's something that you may need in certain circumstances. You also would see required. This means that the document is required for you to submit. Once you have attached a document, it will then go into a yellow status or in review. Once the transaction processor has reviewed your document, they will either reject the document if it's incomplete, and you will see it as a purple incomplete. It means that it might be missing something like initials, signatures, or it's incomplete paperwork. They can also accept it. And when they accept it, it's going to show up as completed. You want all greens when you're looking at your checklist. This is a little quick view of what the transaction processors see. So they do not have the same view or access that you do for your transactions. They have a completely different view. They're able to see any files that are any transactions that have come in with documents that need to be approved. And they can see that this file has not been claimed. So a transaction processor would click on new file to claim. They would claim that transaction and they would follow it all the way through. When they open up the transaction, their view looks like this. They have three main panels. On the left-hand panel, they're going to see the checklist, and it's going to show any of the documents that immediately need attention. And they would then, in the middle panel here, be able to review the document, scan through it, and look and see if it's been completed appropriately. This is where they can accept it, and when they do accept it, it turns as completed on your side. And if there's something that's missing, they can click reject. If they click reject, they do have to put in a comment, and you're able to see those comments. The third panel to the right is going to have any of the transaction detail. This is why it's very important for you to complete all of the required fields when you're creating your listing or your transaction. This is what the transaction processor uses to complete our profit power profile for your transaction so that you can get paid. After they have completed any of the documents that need attention, they can go up here and click on Update Agent, and they're able to send you an email. That email looks something similar to this, where there is going to be to you specifically for that transaction. And they're going to have language that's going to speak to why they're sending you the email. You're also able to easily click the click here button. It's going to take you back into the SkySlope transaction so you can review or update information as needed. And then within the email, you're going to see the checklist. You're going to see any of their updates, and you can see the status of documents that you've submitted. Once you have an accepted contract, we're going through a listing transaction here. Once you have an accepted contract, you would go back into your checklist and you would click Accepted Contract. You would, just like you did on the listing side, you would add any contract documents that are needed by clicking on Attach. And then when it's time to go to closing and you have your closing documents, you would do the same thing where you're going to go into your closing documents and add any documents that are required or any others that you need to add in for to keep on file. Once you turn in your commission check, then it's time to get paid. You have additional learning opportunities by watching other videos here on Tate University. And always, you do have SkySlope's on-demand training. Remember, you can access that from the little button at the top of your navigation bar in SkySlope. And I want to thank you for joining.